Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Dominic from the Comic Book Report YouTube channel over here doing a guest review for organicpricedbooks.com. And today I'm back to talk about a recently released Marvel Omnibus. Of course, we're talking about the X-Men X-Tinction Agenda Omnibus. The comics in this volume were written by Walter and Louise Simonson, Chris Claremont, Fabian Nicieza, and more, and has art from creators like Butch Geist, Terry Shoemaker, Arthur Adams, Jim Lee, and many more. The comics in this volume were first published by Marvel Comics beginning in 1989. As far as what this omnibus includes, it collects Uncanny X-Men issues 270 to 272. New Mutants, issues 95 through 97, X-Factor, issues 60 to 62, X-Men Annual, issues 14 and 15, X-Men Spotlight on the Starjammers, issues 1 and 2, and material from Fantastic Four Annual, issue 23, New Mutants Annual, issues 6 and 7, X-Factor Annual, issues 5 and 6, New Warriors Annual, issue 1, Marvel Comics Presents, issues 10 through 17, 24 through 32, 41, 43, 48, and 49, along with Marvel Superheroes issue 2, 6 through 8, Marvel Holiday Special issue 1, and Marvel Tales issue 262. This collection is an oversized hardcover edition with nice glossy print paper stock, a sewn binding, and a total of 984 pages. Here is another dedicated look to the front dust jacket cover of today's omnibus. I should note that this is the standard edition cover. I will throw up a quick thumbnail of the direct market edition just so you can compare some of the different covers available for this omnibus. Now, as we transition to the spine of this book, we have the nice Marvel Omnibus logo, the exciting and dynamic X-Men, big and bold there, followed by X-Tinction Agenda and a little picture here of Storm in her mutate form. I do believe the direct market might have a different image at the bottom, though I can't be certain. And as we go to the back cover of this omnibus, we have the thumbnailed covers for many of the issues that are included in this very book, and we have a little bit of a blurb, what's collected, things like that. I will say the kind of offset text here is a little interesting to look at, but altogether a pretty good dust jacket in my mind. I do want to spend one more moment examining this dust jacket. For that, I'm going to go ahead and actually show the interior flaps of the dust jacket as well. I am partial to opening the dust jacket up in videos like this just so you can see it all at a glance. You can see everything the dust jacket has to offer. Of course, this is a bit more striking when you have a wraparound image on the dust jacket, but I still think it's nice to see, especially if you are a prospective buyer out there. Now, after we look at this dust jacket, again, this last final time, we can transition to the art on board, the art on the actual hardcover book itself, and in this case, we actually do have a wraparound cover. What we have on the front cover of this book is Jean Grey kind of flying around. We have X-Men X-Tinction Agenda. The spine is just a continuation of that wraparound image, and then along the back, we do have a young Storm. So when you open up the hardback book, you have this big wraparound image of Storm and Jean Grey. I'm a little surprised we don't have a more ensemble cast here, or maybe a fight sequence, but this is still quite a nice design. And now that we're done looking at the exteriors, I did want to transition to a quick look at that book's sewn binding, as I mentioned earlier. Now, this is the binding in my collection. After doing one solid read-through, I am happy to say we have a little bit of an eye on this book. There is perhaps a tiny bit of gutter loss, but honestly, it's really minimal. You can see a little bit more as I flip through the book, but I was really happy with this book's binding. Okay, and now that we finished looking at the binding, I did want to do one more quick note about this release. I'm not sure how widespread this issue is, if it is a misprint across the whole print run or only a select few, but I did notice in my reading that my book did have a misprint in the form of a couple pages printed out of order. This affects in my book pages 418 through 422. This is kind of the end of an issue as it's about to segue into a new one. I noticed that the narrative jumped maybe 3 or 4 pages ahead, and then it kind of went back a little bit. I am happy to say that all the pages are included right next to each other, just a little bit jumbled. I hope you've gotten a good look at it. Again, this is kind of a minor misprint for me. It's not a missing page or set of pages or anything like that, just a couple out of order. It was not a problem for me to jump back and forth, but this is something I just wanted to make a note for. Okay, and now we can go ahead and dive into the omnibus proper. After a cool title page, publication information page, creator breakdown page, we do have a full kind of numbered table of contents, which I always love to see. A great way to index all of your favorite issues included in this very book. After that, we jump right into the first issue, which I believe is part of a Fantastic Four annual, kicking off the story, The Days of Futures Present, and that is the first major story arc in this omnibus. Now, as I flip through here, I'm not going to really be speaking in detail on any kind of spoilers. You might see a couple things as I flip through, though I'll try to be sensitive. I just want you to generally have an idea of what you can expect from this book as you try to decide if this book is right for you. Now, I did do a more spoiler-heavy review on my channel, The Comic Book Report, if you're interested in further details and my thoughts on this book. But on the overview level, this book is really an event-based omnibus, and more than that, kind of a gap filler omnibus. My understanding is that this is sandwiched right between the X-Men by Chris Claremont and Jim Lee omnibus volume 1 and 2. So if you have those two volumes, or if you're hoping to get some someday, this is a good gap filler in the middle. And we do have some Jim Lee art from the X-Men era in here as well as part of the crossover. But this book basically collects the Days of Futures Present storyline and the titular X-Tinction Agenda storyline. Those are the biggest stories in this book. After that, we have a lot of smaller, more self-contained story arcs. There's a couple more that are still really interesting to me. There's some that are big ensemble pieces, and some that really just focus on one mutant or two. Like we have a sequence from, I think, Marvel Comics Presents, or whatever I mentioned earlier, that follows Colossus, and then we have a story following Havoc, for example. These are kind of fun, but didn't really do it for me as much as these bigger story arcs. We also have a 2-issue, kind of big issue feature on the Starjammers that ends this collection as well. But most of the bang for your buck here are really those two stories, The Days of Futures Present and X-Tinction Agenda. My complaint with this book is perhaps that they front load the omnibus with these two amazing stories, and everything else, for the most part for me, felt kind of like filler. That being said, there were still some really incredible moments, and we got a really good showcasing of different mutant characters during this time. We collect issues of not only Uncanny, but also New Mutants, X-Factor, and beyond, and because of that, you just get to see a lot of the active mutant teams at the time, and some, again, solo mutant stories. It has a little bit of something for everyone, and if you're a fan of late 80s, early 90s Marvel Comics, if you're a big X-Men or mutant fan over at Marvel, this is definitely a must-get for you. I think if you're more of a casual X-Men fan, this might not be on the top of the list for X-Men Omnibus editions, but I am still so thrilled that Marvel saw fit to publish this. I know that they had a Days of Futures Present and X-Tinction Agenda hardcovers in oversized format that have been long out of print, so the fact that they kind of rolled that together into this beautiful omnibus collectors like myself are just really glad. Story-wise, those two main stories I mentioned earlier, Days of Futures Present and X-Tinction Agenda, again, without going into spoilers, Days of Futures Present kind of returns us to the idea of the Days of Futures Past timeline that was introduced earlier on in the Chris Claremont era of X-Men. I think that story you can find in the Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 2, if I'm not mistaken, but it's basically like an alternate dystopian future for Marvel's Merry Mutants, and we have some bleed over from that universe coming to the contemporary Marvel mutant kind of universe, and so that's a really fun story, especially if you're a fan of that older legacy story. It also combines some of the current X-Men teams with the Fantastic Four, so some great crossover there, focusing on characters like Rachel Summers, so if you're a fan of Phoenix, this is a really fun one. X-Tinction Agenda, though, is the main draw for this omnibus, of course, and that is a great crossover between the X-Men team, the New Mutants, and the X-Factor team. They all basically stormed the nation of Genosha to try to rescue some of their kidnapped mutant friends, and it leads to all sorts of international hijinks, adventures, action, and I had a lot of fun with this. This is at a period where Cable is kind of leading the New Mutants. We have the X Factor team, that's the original 5 X-Men, and then we have the Uncanny team that's, again, during that Claremont Lee era. So we get like Wolverine, Psylocke and her Quanon kind of persona. We have the Gambit, of course, Storm. So many great A-list kind of X-Men teams here, and I really enjoyed it. The stories, again, can be a little uneven after that, but those 2 stories I think were really worth the cost of admission here. Being a heavy crossover omnibus, we also have a lot of different prolific artists on this book. Some hit much harder for me than others. My pinnacle for this collection is definitely the art from Jim Lee, absolutely astounding, but still a lot of other notable artists. As far as extras go at the back of the collection, we have a lot of art-based extras and other little kind of novelty inclusions. I really do like that we got some kind of historical artifacts here in the extras portion. Nothing huge or groundbreaking, but a lot of fun stuff. Again, if you're a huge fan of X-Men around this time period, the extras are definitely a lot of fun. And really, that is the X-Men Extinction Agenda Omnibus. Perhaps not my top shelf X-Men book of the year, but still a noteworthy inclusion in any omnibus collector's X-Men section. But yeah, that's just my thoughts for this overview. Let me know what you think of Extinction Agenda in the comments below, and a huge thank you again to Organic Price Books. Thanks, everyone.